Welcome
to the Age of Awakening.
Please identify yourself. Enter.
Hey, what's up, Triple P Nation? Welcome back to the podcast. It is me, your humble host, Dr. J. And, before we go any further, the powers that be are going to be very upset if I don't do this. So I need to tell you that this week's episode is brought to you by Triple P Life Nutrition, helping you optimize your health and performance. By the way, those powers are me. Anyway, guys, welcome back to the podcast where, of course, we're going to explore the tools, tactics, and strategies to help you achieve personal and business mastery. As I mentioned, I'm your host, Dr. J, and if you're new to the show, welcome. So excited to have you join us. And if you've been around for 5 years, God, do we love you and do we give you so much thanks and appreciation for sticking with us. I know there's many of you as this show has continued to grow and expand rapidly and significantly through the years. It's just remarkable. And I'm very, very grateful to be behind the mic because I get to do what I love to do, which is my mission, which is to empower millions of people just like you to live happier, healthier, and more prosperous lives. And the way we do that is by teaching the principles of a triple P life, which is empowering in dreams, igniting a passion, accelerating prosperity in the key areas of life: mental, physical, spiritual, and financial. Now, before I get to our weekly success snack feature, if you haven't done so, please hit the like, follow buttons here and leave your comments below. We're going to get back to each and every one of them. We really do care what you think, what you like, what you don't like, because essentially it's me having a conversation with you. And even though it may be a monologue, I feel like it's a dialogue. So I'd love to hear what you have to say in your responses, and I will certainly respond to you. So let's talk about this week's weekly success snack, which is prioritize more, right? Who doesn't need to do more of that? So here we are, right? We're 6-7 weeks into the new year. And if you want to have your best year yet, I want you to consider this. I want you to start by asking yourself, what are your priorities? It's an interesting quote I had just read the other day in a book I'm reading by John Maxwell. And I'm paraphrasing, but he had said that Einstein said, if I have an hour to solve a problem, I'll take 55 minutes to think about what the best question to ask, because once I have that, it'll only take me 5 minutes to solve the problem. So priorities. So I want you to keep in mind there's no right or wrong answer, and it's really completely unique to each and every one of you. But what is your biggest priority in life right now? So if your year has gotten off to a great start, phenomenal. If it got off to a good start and it's kind of waned since, hey, you start today, tomorrow. You don't have to wait to some arbitrary date. So if it's about making more money, creating more fulfillment in your life, if it's about building awesome relationships, starting a family, financial freedom, whatever it might be, right? It could be whatever it is to you. These priorities will going to likely change as time goes on, whether it's, today, next week, next month, next year, because there's reasons and seasons. And as we go through those reasons and seasons, our values change and our wants and desires change. It's okay. The things that you prioritize right now that you're doing here today aren't the same things when you were, let's say, 18 or 21. But once you know and really got to figure out what your priorities are, you can better plan for your future, right? It's the clarity, it's the vision. The more clarity you have on where you are, more importantly, where you want to go, the greater likelihood you're going to achieve the success that you want. Because the majority of the decisions that you make going forward should be in pursuit of maximizing that which you prioritize, which of course is pursuing your Triple P life. So this week, I've got a really interesting guest, Josh Dech. Josh is a holistic nutritionist. And when his PR people sent some information, it really really stuck out at me because he specializes in gut health. You're probably thinking, gut health? The hell is that all about? Well, listen, gut health is really at the foundation of your well-being. Do you know 90% of your serotonin, which is the brain chemical that, makes us feel good, is produced in your gut? Do you know majority of inflammatory diseases that we deal with start with your gut? So he's going to teach us what gut health is if you're having gut health issues, which is a majority of the population, how to restore that, and to give you some tools to begin to improve your overall well-being, because it is the lifestyle, the diet that we consume the environment in which it's chemicals, it's the hormones in the food, it's the pesticides, and a variety of other things, medication, alcohol. The list is nearly endless that puts an enormous stress and pressure on our gut. So we need to prioritize maximizing our gut health if we're going to experience optimal well being. Now, optimal well being is having incredible energy, incredible focus, sleeping great, being able to pursue all your goals without any physical limitations. And if your gut isn't right, you're not going to be right. So enjoy my interview with Josh Dech. Triple P Nation, as I mentioned, my guest this week is Josh Dech. Josh is a holistic nutritionist. And so we were having a conversation. He's up in the province of Alberta, Canada, which is a beautiful portion of the country. Actually, Canada in general is a beautiful place. I've been to almost all the provinces. So, Josh, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So when I saw your PR specialist sent us a request, I thought time of the year, people are really into kind of the health mindset when
Mm,
we shift to a new year, the quote, quote, resolution, which by the way, never works.
never.
But the idea of, choosing to make some better choices, get healthy, so on and so forth. And I thought, you know what, this is a perfect topic, one that I'm quite familiar with and that we have discussed before, but I wanted someone with expertise working with clients and what you've learned and what you teach other healthcare professionals about, because it does play such a critical role in our overall well being, quality of life, and longevity. So let me ask the first question. Why is gut health so important?
That's a question that I love using the cliche question to answer with and say, why isn't it more important? Or what isn't it connected to? What doesn't it do? These are easier questions to answer for sure. But I'll give you sort of the overarching view of it. Your gut is connected to everything. There's the old saying, like, you are what you eat, but we are quite literally what we break down, digest, and absorb. That's number one. And so if your gut isn't functioning optimally, this is anything from mild bloat, acid reflux. If you're not having, 1 to 2 solid, fully formed, easy bowel movements a day, you've got gut issues. And it's a whole variety of spectrum, but the more severe it is, obviously, the less you can break down, digest, absorb, the less your gut can do its job. I liken it to having a broken leg. If your leg is shattered, you have severe, like what I do is inflammatory bowel disease, it's Crohn's and colitis. That's a shattered leg. You fell off 20 stories, you got pins and needles and a cast, and they're trying to repair this leg. And everybody's wondering, well, when can I go out for a jog? Like, man, we need to really dial back and do nothing. Let these tissues repair, because that severity, you can't do anything. So you're not breaking down, digesting, you're not absorbing. That's the very first basic one. Even on a light level, take the sprained ankle, right? It's a very small version of that. But we have to break down, digest, and absorb because we need every nutrient that we consume. It's going to come through our digestive tract. And all of our cells need nutrients. If we don't have them, they find them from other places. It's not uncommon for me to see somebody coming in, for example, who's dealing with joint pain, hair loss, skin issues like acne, mood swings, anxiety, depression, and it all comes back to the gut. And a large part of that is one, up to 90% of your neurotransmitters. That's your serotonin, your dopamine, your GABA, things that help your brain function and focus and have desire for, the reward system of the dopamine. They're made in your gut, 90%. 70%, arguably up to 90% of your immune system comes from your gut. And so if you're getting sick all the time, you're unhealthy, whatever it is, and bring it back to digesting and absorbing. If you're not absorbing, your body will find nutrients from other places. And so it's very common. I see people with gut issues who also have very sensitive teeth because their body's actually extracting minerals from other systems and other organs like their teeth to support it in the ways that it needs. So it's got a priority, a pecking order. And so our guts are everything. They're our focus, our clarity. It's responsible for weight gain, weight loss, all these different things. And the cherry on top, Jay, we have about 100 trillion bacteria living inside of our gut, makes up 3 to 5 pounds. That's 2 to 3% of the average body weight. They outnumber our own cells 10 to 1. So we are more microbes than we are body. And take it one step further, there's 23,000 genes, give or take, in the entire human genome. There's over 3 million genes in genetic material inside of your gut bacteria alone. So it's 130 times more genetic material inside of your gut bacteria. So our guts, I argue, are as important as our DNA, if not more so.
That's mind blowing, that statistic. I'd never heard it before. You said something, a minute or two ago. I don't want to gloss over it because this is such a common issue in society today. You said that a healthy gut, those people typically have 1 to 2 really good, healthy, non-struggling bowel movements per day. So I don't know what the statistic is. Maybe you have it. What percent of the population actually does that? Do you?
Very small, actually. So statistically, on exactly how many people have 1 to 2 bowel movements, I don't know. What I can tell you is a reflective statistic that we know between 65 and 72, depends on the studies, 65 to 72% of all Americans complain of some kind of gut issue at least once a week, which is going to be your gas, bloat, constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux, pain, cramping, something along those lines, at least once a week. And the vast majority of their doctors. I've even seen GI specialists, that's like the doctors who do just gut. They'll say if you're having one bowel movement every couple of days, it's fine. That to me that's red alert, man. That's a problem. I've had people come in to
Sure.
see me, no, but they have one bowel movement every 2 to 4 weeks. It's shocking they've not been in the emergency room for it already. And most of them are medically induced bowel movements. So it's quite shocking what gets allotted as normal or acceptable.
Which is crazy. I know I don't want to divulge personal information, but I know someone, a young lady, and she has had, I think she said, 5 bowel movements in the last 4 months. And I mean, obviously she's so bloated and distended. If I don't have 2 bowel movements a day, I'm ornery.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that
Go to
morning
bed.
poop, that's the
Oh
best.
my God. Exactly. Exactly. You know, um, my own personal story is years ago, roughly around this time, I started to notice joint pain. I'm in my late 50s, so wear and tear. I worked hard, I played hard, so some OA is not unusual. Cartilage breakdown just from overuse. But it was systemic in the sense I was noticing in multiple joints and bilateral. So I have a functional health coach that I work with, and we started to dig and investigate. And our initial concern was an inflammatory arthritis or some sort of inflammatory condition going on. And so we did a whole series of blood work, and all my markers were good. And so then we did, a gut assessment, and came come to find out that leaky gut syndrome due to 3 or 4 foods that were prevalent in my diet that I was
Mm,
highly reactive to, right? I wasn't just sensitive, I was full blown allergic to, and they were a regular part of my diet.
mhm.
And so my body was expressing that through my musculoskeletal, my joints. And so we went on this really intense, very focused gut restoration program for 3 months. And so what is that, 12 weeks? About halfway through week 6, 7, about 80% of the symptoms were gone by week 10. 100% of the symptoms are gone. Felt amazing. I know exactly what you're talking about. And this is from coming from somebody, admittedly, who eats well, who exercises regularly. So it doesn't have to be just people who have lifestyles, right? You can develop these sensitivities and or allergic reactions to some of the most common foods that enjoy even later in life. And doing these assessments is so critical to identify that. So I would imagine you see that quite frequently.
All the time. I mean, our guts are connected to everything, not only in the ways we talked about earlier about neurotransmitters and immune systems and all that, but you understand now leaky gut from having experienced it, right? I mean, we look at our gut and our gut health. If there's inflammation, our guts tend to leak. That's what leaky gut is. And so we only have it's one cell between your small intestine and your bloodstream, your lymphatics, which are the superhighways around your body. It's 2 cells thick from your large intestine. And so we have inflammation in these areas. Things leak through, they get into the system, they get around that superhighway, they get through the blood brain barrier, leading to any kind of mental health issues you might have, can be inflammation. We're even looking at now, researchers are considering even autism to be a neuroinflammatory condition or an autoimmune condition, not a structural issue. And so they're looking now at the gut and certain microbes. And so as this circulates around the body, exactly what you said, it can settle into the joints, it can settle into the muscles. You might have fibromyalgia, it might have inflammation in the skin. You've got psoriasis because it disrupts that microbiome that you have on your skin. We have a biome everywhere, right? In our mouth, our nose, our eyebrows, our hair, your gut, like every organ, every tissue. It's like a neighborhood, but all these neighborhoods work together to make one big ecosystem. And when those are disrupted, you can have problems anywhere. You were, I would say, fortunate enough to have it settle in your joints, and fortunate enough more so to have somebody in the functional medicine space to say, hey, like, let's figure out what's going on. Unfortunately, a lot of people who have gut issues, they go, well, it's my joints. The doctor says, here's a pill for arthritis. You have arthritis. But when nobody says, why are you inflamed? Every symptom in the body, even a diagnosis from your doctor, we get attached to these diagnoses and go, well, this is just the way it is. I have arthritis. It's genetic. It's not genetic. What it is you all have some kind of inflammatory condition. You are genetically predisposed to expressing inflammation via that pathway. You were lucky enough to get it in your joints where you could feel it. Some people get it in their brain. They go, well, depression runs in my family. Anxiety runs in my family. It doesn't. Inflammation expressed through the brain might run in your family. I have gut issues in my family. So when I'm inflamed or I'm stressed, it goes right to my gut. But I'm lucky again because I can see that. I can catch it right away. But there are other people who have conditions who may not connect arthritis, who may not connect fibromyalgia, who may not connect anxiety, depression, or whatever other, any medical condition under the sun you can possibly name, we can trace back to the gut. In fact, 93% of the leading causes of death in the USA have a gut connection, either directly responsible for or a major role. 93%. The last, that 7%, is suicide, homicide, accidents, injuries. And so that means every leading cause we're calling the normal cause of death comes back to the gut, which is pretty bizarre.
That is absolutely incredible statistic. So you're right. If I would have went to my local MD with those symptoms, and they would have done a SED rate, or
Sure.
uh, C-reactive protein, homocysteine, whatever the inflammatory markers they're going to check, whether they were high or not, they would have put me on some sort of Celebrex or something like that, and never even thought of looking at the gut. So, why is it that traditional Western medicine doesn't acknowledge the link, right? In most cases, there are some that do,
Mhm.
that acknowledge the link from gut health to overall health and well-being, and why is that looked at more frequently and as a, getting to the root cause?
It depends on what rabbit hole you want to go down here, Jay. So,
We can go any hole you want, man. Just go
all
for
right.
it.
All right. I'm here for that. So I often joke that my hairline's back here because my tinfoil hat's been rubbing on it so long. But we have to look back. We can trace and say, okay, well, there's a miniature documentary. If you look in the bowels of the internet, you can dig up, called Rockefeller Medicine. Up until the late 1800s, herbalism and Ayurvedic and all these different paths of natural medicine were regularly used. In fact, if we go back to the Civil War, there was a book, Fields and Fauna or something like that, but it was actually invented by a doctor during the American Civil War, and they expect, because it was all just all these plants and herbs from Carolina and all these other areas that they had pulled locally that were so nutrient dense and so beneficial and so antimicrobial and so good for the immune system, that they actually suspect this book had actually extended the war by 2 to 3 years because it was helping people heal so much, which is quite
Wow.
a staggering statistic. So we know we have so much evidence that herbs work. But in the late 1800s, JT Rockefeller came in after the Industrial Revolution and figured out that petroleum products, this waste product from what they were utilizing things, could be used for other things. They started creating pharmaceutical drugs. We had the rise of penicillin, which there have been lots of amazing things coming out of pharmaceuticals. I myself am an advocate for integrative medicine, which is pharmaceuticals and natural. Unfortunately, at that time, JT Rockefeller had a lot of doctors and scientists study the current medical curriculum, the herbs, the everything, and they effectively, over time, they scrubbed anything to do with natural remedies, homeopathics, Ayurvedic, anything at all, wiped it from the textbooks, rewrote the curriculum, and even today, the big pharmaceutical companies sponsor 20 to 50%, some will say more, of medical school, which means they get to pay for what goes in the textbooks. They get to pay for what goes in the curriculum. They get to pay for the studies that get studied in school because they cost millions of dollars. And now we're conditioned to say, well, I want a double blind, randomized control trial with this, and this over a 10-year span. I'm like, that is a $30 million investment. Nobody's going to put that money up unless there are tens of
Unless
millions.
it's the COVID-19 vaccine. But keep going.
Oh my God. You and I've seen a couple of your episodes with that. You and I on the exact same page. And it's just such a disaster. And so we look at
I'm
it.
sorry to interrupt you. I just had to
No,
show,
you're
right,
beautiful.
how much hypocrisy there is. But go ahead.
No, you're right. It is sickening. And especially these last couple of years, for those who've been paying attention, we can see the role of big pharma. There were articles even in the last few years published in The Lancet, one of the most prestigious medical journals on planet Earth, that for the first time ever were being redacted left, right, and center, information being scrubbed. And so we know that all this has been done. We know the medical system has been changed. And unfortunately now, and this is from doctors that I meet with who have left medicine, they say it is cookbook medicine where they're going in. Doctors are now looking at your symptoms. They go, okay, here's what's going on symptomatically. You have pain, you have this, you have that, you have inflammation here, here, and here. Therefore, if we put it in the boxes and check the paperwork, you have this diagnosis. When you have this diagnosis, we give you drugs 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 in this order. If that doesn't work, I send you to somebody else, and you have a gut specialist, you have a thyroid doctor, you have an endocrinologist outside of that one who might look at other types of hormones or endocrine stuff. You have a doctor who looks at just joints. You have a doctor who looks at just brain, just lungs. You have your pulmonologist, which is great to specialize, but we're not looking at the entirety of the body as a whole. And so we've completely segregated the body and its systems into individual parts, like it's some kind of raw machinery that it's, well, your motor's broken down, let's replace the motor, you'll be fine, right? People who come in with simple things like knee pain, you could probably fix that with 3 weeks of proper exercises and rebalancing the muscles rather than going for a full knee replacement. And the same thing in my field of Crohn's and colitis, where I specialize. You know how much, Jay? Wild guess. How much do you think it costs to go for a total, like to get your colon removed, right? A lot of people with inflammatory bowel disease get a total colectomy. Ballpark, how much you think that's going to cost someone?
Are we talking in the traditional realm?
Yeah, in the United States of America,
150,000.
220 to 240,000, sir. On the other hand, now insurance will cover much of that, sure, but it's an insurance-based model. I've got a client
Yeah.
right now. We're trying to go through to get him onto functional or a FMT list, which is fecal microbiota transplant. They literally take stool from one person and give it to another, $7,500 plus facility and anesthesia. So maybe 10 grand to get, maybe 15 on the high end to get all this done. And that in many cases, like we've seen it fix Parkinson's. Dr. William Lee was telling me about a story where he had scrubbed in recently a lady with cancer, and they cured her cancer with a fecal transplant because even our bacteria connected to all these toxins and inflammation. And so that's a $10,000, $15,000 procedure. Or you could go in and just look at only your gut, only your colon, only this, only that, and be billed $240,000. And so it's until we realize that we are being milked for every ounce, every little bit of money, that sickness is a business. It's an industry worth $4.5 trillion a year. We as a nation will never really get forward on this one. But the minute you bring it up and say, well, maybe we're being screwed, the guy, you're a conspiracy theorist. And it's a really unfortunate
Yeah.
position to be sitting.
Well, you used the word, you said integrative, right?
Mhm.
The integrative approach is the best approach because throwing the baby out with the bathwater, even admittedly, right?
Sure.
Medicine has its place. You know, we have the best crisis care system in the world here in the United States. Bar
100%.
none. I don't think anybody would argue that, right? You know, we let's not even get into the treatment of cancer, things like that.
Mm,
But utilizing a more holistic approach and integrating medicine when the holistic approach first for whatever reason doesn't work, and I would say in most cases if it's the right approach it will work because restoring homeostasis to the body so the cells can express health ultimately is going to get you well.
mhm.
I mean, it's it can't be any more simpler than that. And so it's an integrative approach. And particularly here, again in the States, we're starting to see a movement towards that, more
Mhm.
so from a consumer demand than anything. And that's to me, in my 30 years in healthcare, has been the most exciting part and those an exciting shift in public consciousness.
Yeah, I think that's a remarkable way to look at it. I mean, the reason I think it's happening is we have so much influence through social media. You look at Dr. Mark Hyman, Glucose Goddess. You look at Dr. Saladino or Carnivore MD. Between these guys, I mean, there are millions, tens of millions of followers out there looking to these holistic, we'll say more on the natural side of things for the healing, like the body heal itself. Take out the garbage, take out the junk, look at nutrition. Things were not taught conventionally. And you nailed it. I mean, Western medicine does a phenomenal job at emergencies. They are one of the best emergencies and surgeries, probably the best in the world. But they treat everything as if it's acute. Like you come in with arthritis, like you were dealing with, the doctor goes, well, it's arthritis. And so here's a pill. Well, you can take a pill as a temporary measure, but the chronic inflammatory conditions we treat like they are acute. We do the same kind of process. There's no measurement for cause and effect. And again, I'll bring it back to Crohn's and colitis. And I say this word, a lot of listeners might go, well, I don't have Crohn's and colitis. We're outside of that by now. What we're talking about here is the spectrum of severity. I talk about gut disease like a wear and tear. If you're walking outside, for example, and you have a pair of shoes on and there's no sock and you're rubbing that heel raw till it blisters and it bleeds, then you've got yourself a problem. And the same thing happens in the gut. It starts with just bloat today. It becomes IBS eventually, and then becomes IBD way down the road. And your doctor goes, well, you've always had it. We just never diagnosed it. Or maybe now it's just getting worse. Like, it makes no sense. And so when I talk about these diseases like inflammatory bowel, Crohn's and colitis, I'm using it as a severity spectrum. And so we talk about these diseases in the Western world. They go, well, it's autoimmune. There's nothing we can do. It just is what it is. You're just inflamed now, or you've always had this disease, or it's just genetic. It's not genetic. Your body, autoimmune conditions, these diseases don't just fall out of the sky and drop on your head. Prime example for you, Jay. I'm working with a client right now, and she's in her 50s. She's had inflammatory bowel for 16, 17 years. She's tried every drug, every antibiotic. Her doctors have put her on all kinds of autoimmune drugs and immunosuppressives, like the works. She's had little to no result. We got her in. 3 months in, she's feeling 80, 90% better. Continue doing more testing. The first one, it was inflammation. It was like you had. She was eating things she shouldn't have been eating. There were certain allergies that she had causing leaky gut. On top of that, we went back through her family history. This is where it gets interesting. Her doctor says, well, your family just has these issues. Everybody's got asthma. Everybody's got anxiety. You happen to have inflammatory bowel. 2 of your siblings have IBS. I thought, okay, this doesn't make sense. When did it start? We peel back the history. Turns out they all had a household mold exposure when they were kids. And now everybody's being treated for chronic diseases like asthma and arthritis and irritable bowel or inflammatory bowel as if they're just diseases they have. The entire family has a mold infection. We get that out of their system and bing, bang, boom. Guess what? Nobody needs medication anymore. Her inflammatory bowel disease is gone. It'll never come back. But it was mold at the root. And we see this so much. It's Lyme disease, it's mold, it's infection, it's use of antibiotics, it's heavy metals, it's toxins, it's environmental, it's stress, it's nutritional. It's a combination of many things that we never investigate because the insurance-based model says you have 7 to 9 minutes, you have to see 30 to 40 patients a day, and you'll get paid. Plus, there's a kickback on pharmaceutical drugs. So much so, I'll cherry on top of this one. I feel like I'm ranting now, but we had a client come in. She was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, came out 12 weeks later, no Crohn's. She went for a scan as a CT enterography. So they went for a full scan of her body, went through and did a colonoscopy as well. No signs of Crohn's, zero, gone. And her doctor went, well, you have Crohn's disease though. She goes, yeah, but I don't. She says, well, you do. You had this diagnosis. So I'd really like you on Entyvio, which is an immunosuppressive drug. It's for autoimmune disease. She goes, yeah, but why do I need it? Well, because you have Crohn's. She says, but I don't have it on my test. There's no signs of Crohn's disease. Yeah, but. And so it's this battle like, well, it's tunnel vision. You had Crohn's, therefore take the drug, regardless of how you got here. Or the other kid I'm working with, who's 16 years old, came in, he was down to 92 or 93 pounds. We worked with him for 3 months. He gained 25 pounds. His symptoms were down 80, 90%, feeling phenomenal, feeling fantastic. Went back to his doctor who said, well, I'm glad you're gaining weight, but I don't love how you're going about it. And that's the issue we have in medicine, no matter what evidence. And some doctors are phenomenal. That's how I got here, some great doctors. But the general is, it's this cookbook. Here's what you got to do. Follow the protocol. Otherwise, you're, quote, non-compliant, and we don't want to work with you anymore. And that's a major struggle that North America faces today.
I experienced that similarly in my own practice. When people would get amazing results, they go back to their doctor and they would, basically testify to the point, I've been seeing this chiropractor and, I've never felt better, this, that, and the thing. And the doctor goes, well, that sounds good. Keep doing what you're doing. And I would always ask the patient, and countless times I would say, did they ever ask you, what is he doing? Or, can I reach out to him or find out? So for future patients, maybe there's somebody I can refer to and, help other people. So there's that whole thing that goes on as well too. But I would like you to get a little bit in the mechanics. So understand. Okay. So you've explained the leaky gut. You explained how important a healthy gut biome is. What are the mechanics? What happens that initially? You also talked about what causes, gut health to be altered as far as stress and diet and nutrition, and I don't think you said parasites, but parasites
They're on
and
the list. Yep.
mold and right, all those things. So first of all, how do you determine what is the underlying cause? And A, is that less important than really dealing with the gut health in of itself? Or do you also have to remove the injuring agent as well too? Is that have to kind of be a parallel track?
Yeah, really good question. And I love talking to other healthcare providers because you just really understand how to break these things down for the audience, which is great. So when we look at it this way, so for example, if somebody comes in and their history is huge. I don't just want to know it because they're accustomed to going to their doctors and saying, here are my symptoms. I'm inflamed, I'm bloated, I have blood, I have this, or whatever it is. The doctor goes, again, here are your symptoms, here's your diagnosis, here's your drug. So they come to me and they go, well, here are my symptoms. I say, great. I know where you're at right now. You've already got a diagnosis. That's all I need to know. When did this start? What happened before this started? Did it creep up slowly over months or years? Is it something that you woke up one day and boom, you had blood in your stool? Like I see this all the time. And so the mechanics of the breakdown of the gut, there has to be one of two ways that it happens. Number one, like we talked about, the foot in a sock or foot in a shoe without socks on. It's that wear and tear process. Somebody who over time has been eating very poorly, regularly exposed to allergens, they're drinking, they're smoking, they're nutrient depleted, they're high stress, and we start to get that those things will cause bacterial dysbiosis, we call it, or imbalances in your gut bacteria, which can lead to buildup of endotoxins, which can lead to inflammation, leading to leaky gut, again, breaking down, wearing and tearing until we have this diagnosis of these problems. On the other hand, we have an acute insult to the area. So somebody gets, again, a mold exposure. They ingest a parasite. They have some kind of bacterial infection that's direct. Maybe they went traveling and got infected water. Maybe they had exposure. I have one girl I'm seeing right now. Over the last 3 years, her doctors gave her over 30 rounds of antibiotics for an issue. They were just throwing stuff at the
Oh,
wall and seeing what would stick. And so that's that slow burn, that problem that accumulates over time, or it's a direct insult. And so that's what I see the two primary ways that people become inflamed of some kind. But effectively, what happens is number one, there's a mechanical breakdown of some kind. And so that's going to be digestive motility through high stress, for example, right? We're in that fight or flight. We're not producing proper stomach acid. So we're not regulating the bacteria that come into our body. We get acid reflux. The number one cause of my practice, I'm sure you see it in yours, for acid reflux is actually low stomach acid due to high stress,
yes.
whatever it is. And that's that pressure, pH sensitive sphincters on the stomach that doctors go, well, you're refluxing. So here's something to suppress your acid. Well, we're feeding the problem now because it's from low acid. And so then we have these motility disorders where the gut is not moving things through that peristalsis, that milking of food through the system is not happening at an appropriate rate because your nervous system is dysregulated. If they're having a C1, C2 issue, they're going to be in a chronic fight or flight, and you can adjust that as a chiropractor. Maybe they've got some kind of neurological dysfunction leading to tightening of muscles because it's compensatory, and now their GI system is all tightened up and we're not getting proper movement. There's so many ways this happens. But with improper stomach acid, improper motility, it tends to lead to hyperfermentation or whatever it is, and your gut bacteria start to become imbalanced. And that's a beautiful ecosystem, 100 trillion of them working in harmony, doing all these beautiful things together, working as they're supposed to. The challenge now is that when they become imbalanced and they're way thrown off, well, now we've got a problem because, again, that ecosystem is out of whack. Every bacterium in the body has a role. We know, like Candida, Clostridium, these ones that we go to the hospital or we look online and go, oh, they're really bad for me. They're only bad out of balance, right? Whether we like it or not, Jay, I like to say that even the crack dealer at the gas station plays a role in the economy in some way, right?
Right.
It's,
It's true.
but the problem is, if every store, every grocery store, every coffee shop sold nothing but crack, now we've got a problem. Everything's going to start breaking down. And so the idea is that in small amounts, these are great, but the good bacteria police the bad. And so if we have motility disorders, we're eating poorly, we're wearing and tearing the system, we slowly shift that ecosystem from good and balanced and harmonious to bad and imbalanced. And now we have too much candida, too much negative bacteria, too much what can be classified as autoimmune or inflammatory bacteria, leading to inflammation, leading to wear and tear until we wear that shoe out so much it's blistered and bleeding. And now we have a digestive disease diagnosis that your doctor goes, well, it's autoimmune. So that's your sort of your mechanical breakdown. A very similar thing happens if it's acute insult, like heavy antibiotics, mold exposure, parasites, or infection. It just happens a lot quicker. That ecosystem changes immediately, right? It's an invasion rather than a slow progressive process. But ultimately, those are the two ways people develop these diseases. And again, the challenge is the doctor just gives them drugs. But the reality is, I liken it to going to the hospital with a thorn in your hand, right? Imagine this thing stuck in there, it's bloody and it's infected. And the hospital goes, well, here's some ointment for the pain. You'd be pretty pissed off that they're not getting the thorn out of your hand. And the same thing
Sure.
happens with these digestive diseases. There is something that drove it in the first place. Again, childhood mold exposure, parasites, antibiotics. In fact, something had to happen. And then they just give you ointment for the pain. That's your immunosuppressive drugs. That's your antacids. That's your whatever it is. And we're not getting to the root cause. But getting to that root, your body, sometimes in weeks, sometimes it takes months, can fully reverse itself. Now, that damage, the residual, can take months and years to fix. But I've got people coming in with inflammatory bowel disease who, in as little as a couple of days, their symptoms are cut in half. In a couple of weeks, they're almost gone. Over 3 to 6 months, there's no disease left on their tests. Their colonoscopies, their enterographies, their CTs, MRIs, gone because we found the root. Your body's no longer fighting against something else or itself.
Yeah, I like the way you said. I mean, it's getting to the root cause. I mean, that's really what it comes down to it. I always used to say in practice, tell my patients, they would ask me, does it make sense to continue ongoing care after my symptoms decrease? And I said, well, ask. I said, you exercise, right? And they would say yes. And I said, why do you exercise? Exercise to, stay well, stay fit, healthy, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, well, if you exercise once, are you fit? No. Okay. So do you have to continue, right, on your fitness plan to maintain a level of fitness? Yes. Now we use the same analogy. The point being is that intention and focus with the specific outcome in mind and the right strategies. I mean, literally, we are designed to live to be 120 and to be
Yeah.
fully functional, not to be disease ridden, bedridden the last few remaining years of our lives. It's our lifestyle and the choices that we make that ultimately leads to that outcome. So here's what I want to know, and I'm sure my listeners are thinking of this. Okay, that all makes a ton of sense. I understand it. How would I then determine, right, what would the steps that I would need to take to determine, is my gut biome out of balance? Is there tests need to do? And then if we find out that there is an underlying issue, let's say we find it before it gets to the acute inflammatory stage where now they've got blood in the stool and they're in a really bad place. What do I do to restore my gut and my microbiome?
Yeah, so it really depends on the level of severity. Most people, if you really do a toxic inventory of your food in your home and you start looking at that and you realize, okay, you know what? I eat like garbage. I'm eating fast food, packaged food, fried foods. I'm eating, alcohol consumption. There's sugar. There's all these things. Simply cleaning up the diet. I've had people who have had, especially younger, because the nutrition just gets worse and worse over years, who have simply cleaned up their diet and again, fully reverse inflammatory bowel disease. On the other hand, I got people who do, like you mentioned, they need more assessments. And so for someone to know, is my gut out of whack? Simply put, do you have any kind of imbalance? When you eat, are you bloated? Are you having any kind of digestive dysfunction? Are you feeling heavy after meals or nauseous after meals? That's an imbalance of some kind that needs to be addressed. That's the simplest way to put it. If you do not eat and feel amazing afterwards, high energy, good mood, really flat belly, if you feel anything negative, you're having a problem. Now, the question is it you or is it the food or is it both? Oftentimes it's both because again, after a certain amount of time of wear and tear, your mechanical processes break down. And so we need to repair those a little bit. But food is number one. It would be shocking to most people to hear, and anybody dealing with bowel issues will know their doctor will say food has nothing to do with this disease, especially IBD. So eat whatever you want. It makes no difference. I'm like, but that's what got them there. Like I've seen people who literally just ate like crap, and that's what caused the disease. And so we have to understand that it's a contributing factor. Is it the root all the time? Very rarely, maybe 5 to 10% of the time. But it's a huge factor. And so if somebody says, well, do I have gut issues or not? Number one, do you have any kind of dysfunction or abnormalities? Anything. And I want to split the difference. Again, your doctor will say a couple bowel movements or one bowel movement every couple of days is normal. We have taken common and called it normal. People are commonly sick. 92% of the entire American population is not metabolically healthy. And so we've taken our average standard of care and based it off of an entire country, millions, hundreds of millions of sick people, and said, well, this is normal now. It's not normal. It's not optimal. It's far from it. And so if you do not have optimal digestion, you've got a problem. Now, if you want to actually go back further and start testing stuff, 100% you can get a GI map done. Now, a GI map is the only time you can really poop in a box and mail it to somebody without it being a felony. And so it's a really exciting opportunity for those who are a little bit mischievous. But what you get to do is you give a stool sample. It's a very humbling experience. I'll tell you, Jay, the first one I had to give, I know you're like, I'm not going to divulge personal details. I'll give it all to you guys. Here's a horrible picture. They send you a little kit and they give you a little cardboard box, and it's about the size of what you get at a ballpark for a hot dog. And you got to lay it down and you got to strip down naked because otherwise you're getting it on your ankles. And you got to poop in this little cardboard box, and they give you a stick and you got to scoop some out and mix it in this fluid and shake it up and put it in a bag. And then not only is that like humbling and humanizing enough, but now you have to take it to FedEx or to Canada Post and send it in the mail, looking somebody dead in the eye, pretending that they don't know this is a box of feces, and just pretend like it says non-infectious human specimen on the box. But what you do after that is you send it in the mail, and the lab gets it. After about 2 weeks' time, they send you back a report. Now, typically you go to your doctor, and I get a lot of people again and say, no, my doctor says I have no bacterial issues. Well, they're checking for your top 5 or 6 pathogens. They might check H. pylori. They might check Epstein-Barr. They might check adenovirus, but they're primarily checking for C. diff, E. coli, salmonella, varicella, like really nasty stuff. The things where if we don't get these, you could die. Full stop. They're checking 5 out of 100 trillion. Right, realistically, and we have. I'll rewind that. We have 1,000 to 2,000 species, 7,000 to 9,000 strains of bacteria, which makes up anywhere from 10 to 20 million different bacterium multiplied out into 100 trillion. And so they check 5 to 10 out of maybe 20 million. It's a grain of sand on a beach. Really, it is. And they say there's no pathogens, you're fine. But what they're not looking for is the imbalance in ratios. We talked about harmony, right? The crack dealers are important. They're just saying there's not too much crack being sold. You're going to be fine. What we want to look at is the ratios, the balance. You can have too much good bacteria. That's your SIBOs and other related conditions. That's your small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or other overgrowths, which can be as problematic as having too much bad. And so we look at these bacterium in a stool sample in ratio, and we can say, okay, here's what's infectious. Here's what's not. I see really nasty bacteria called like Citrobacter or Klebsiella. There's different strains of these ones. I've had people come in after a full 12-week program with me, Jay. They've come in 16 weeks later and they feel fantastic. All their symptoms are gone. They're not bloated anymore. They're not sick. They're not, they've lost 20 pounds in good weight because they were overweight, couldn't lose the weight. They feel amazing, but still had blood. And it's been those Citrobacter, Klebsiella bacteria. They're known to cause joint pain, known to cause bleeding, right? They're classified as autoimmune inflammatory. But your doctors, when you have gut issues, are not checking for autoimmune inflammatory bacteria, which is odd for a condition that's classified as an autoimmune inflammatory condition, right? We're just checking the basics. Can we give a drug for this, yes or no? But then they send you on your way. And so the stool sample, it tells us, is there any fat in your stool? We can check for meat fibers, vegetable fibers. We can check for pancreatic function and pancreatic enzyme by checking something called stool elastase. We can see, is your pancreas doing what it should be doing? We can check for something else that's really cool called beta-glucuronidase. I'm sure you're familiar in the functional medicine space. It's an enzyme produced by bad bacterium. So we get people coming in with hormonal issues, either women with severe PMS and really bad symptoms, a lot of estrogen storage. You can see, we actually take photos of all of our clients we see as well. If they have weight gain around the belly, upper arms, if men have a bit more, we'll say pectoral fat known as man boobs, right? That gynecomastia. And their beta-glucuronidase, that enzyme, from the gut bacteria that's produced is super high, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000, that recirculates estrogens. It recirculates. We get this recirculation of bile, pulling in all kinds of toxins, recirculating in the body. So we're not actually detoxifying this stuff to clear it out, which is part of what your gut bacteria do. They also detoxify and balance hormones. And so a stool sample can give us a really amazing view of what's going on in the body. If we want to go one step further, we can get what's called an organic acid test. That's your OAT. And so these organic acids, everything in the body produces a byproduct, right? Cells can produce lactic acid. That's that burning feeling you guys get when you're working out. And so if we see somebody with bacteria, overgrowth, either good or bad, we can see some species of mold. They produce these organic acids we can measure. And then it's a urine test. So all these different infections or whatever it is, we can see right down to your cellular respiration. What are your cells doing? Are they using oxygen? Are they not? We can detect all this in urine. There's one I use through Mosaic Labs. It used to be Great Plains Labs. It tests 75 or 76 different markers that we check all in ratios. And so basically, I know I'm getting a bit technical, but what it does basically is these tests give us a really good high level view of what's going on. Is there imbalances in a gut bacteria space? Is there a cellular issue? If I see ratios of 1, 2, and 3, and they're skewed this way, then it tells me one thing. If they're skewed that way, it tells me another. And we can just look and reference and cross-reference all this stuff to see what is going on. And it's really cool testing to do.
So I was thinking as you were telling your story, getting the stool sample, taking it to FedEx, bringing it
Yes.
to the counter, and the gal says, "Would you like to insure this?" And you said, "No, it's not worth shit." Sorry, guys, that was playing in my head here. No, listen, that
That's a
was
big
actually,
takeaway from this whole thing.
yeah, no, sorry, man, it's just a little juvenile humor here. No,
We'll
so
never
here,
grow up. I respect that.
no, heck no, that's what keeps us young and vibrant. So, okay, so you talked about these the oat test and the first step of analysis, stool test, so on and so forth. Who's qualified to do that? Obviously, you do that. Like, how
Mhm.
would someone search out and find someone if having issues and they want to dive deeper? Maybe they've gone the medical route and it just hasn't, resulted in any positive outcomes for them. How would they find someone? First of all, I'd certainly let them know how they can connect with you, but how would they
Mhm.
find someone who's qualified to do this kind of work?
Yeah, easiest way, a lot of functional medicine practitioners can do it. Now, I work in the realm of what's considered functional medicine. I'm not a doctor, and so I can't say like I'm a functional medicine specialist. Like, so I'm an ex-paramedic, I'm a holistic nutritionist, and so I work in that functional medicine space. I consult with doctors as well and consult for some doctors. And so I've sort of got some other strings I get to pull. For example, Mosaic Diagnostics, this lab that I work with, you have to be a medical doctor. Like, you got to have an NPI number, you got to have this stuff, and you got to be certified in all these ways, in precision diagnostics and whatever. So I went through and I said, hey, like, here's what I do, here's who I am, here's who I work with, blah, blah, blah. And so they granted me access to these tests because I do these tests, I read these tests, and I work with doctors who do these types of testing. So I was able to get some, we'll say backdoor entry to be able to get this permission to order these tests. But conventionally speaking, a functional medicine doctor or a functional medicine practitioner of some kind, some labs will give you like Vibrant Wellness is a great one out of California. Again, you need a practitioner who can get you these things, but even a nutritionist can go and get testing through these types of labs. And so the challenge is the easier the labs are to get, the less regulation there is. For example, going through labs like Precision, you have to be a medical doctor. They are highly regulated. They have certain, what's what I'm looking for, certain regulations and codes and stuff they have to abide by, which keeps the quality of standard very, very high. I do love Vibrant Wellness for a lot of different things. They have tons of labs, but because just about any practitioner can go through and get some of these, right? A nutritionist, a whoever can get these types of access to these labs. We can't always guarantee they have the same level of standard or the same scrutiny around them, though I do, quite like a lot of the reports they spit out. And so a lot of people can get them, but anybody in the functional medicine space. Now, the challenge is we do see a lot of practitioners ordering tests just to get the testing done, hoping it will show something magical, not really understanding the depth of interpretation of some of these. And so you do have a lot of people, even some doctors, order tests just to have the test ordered, but not really knowing what to do with it once the results get there. So you really want to vet your practitioner. Go with a functional medicine practitioner, talk to some of their clients, interview them. When I bring a client in, I'm interviewing to see, like, can I help you for sure? But on the other hand, like, am I a good fit? Do you really believe the things I'm telling you? If you smell bullshit whenever I'm talking to you, go find somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, that's your prerogative as well as a patient or as a client. So that's my recommendation when seeking somebody out.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation. And I agree with that as well too. And it's interesting as I mentioned earlier, right? I have a functional medicine coach and I consult with that individual. I consult with her at least once a year, sometimes twice a year. I really go to the MD, it kind of leads to one of the things that you had indicated, right? There are specific types of food and nutrition and supplements, exercise, and so forth that really can benefit our gut health. In other words, again, here we are with a new year. People are making all sorts of goals that relates to their health. What are some simple things that they implement now to start to up level their gut health? If let's say they're not having any issues, but they want to ensure that they don't and know that what they're doing is the right steps to prevent, as opposed to those who are in crisis care and certainly need to reach out to a
Mhm.
health professional who could do a more extensive evaluation.
Mm. So the good news is those who are in crisis situation, like again, IBD, dealing with Crohn's colitis, that's definitely going to take a very specialized touch. Like, that's all I do. I see sometimes severe IBS, but it's 99.9% of what I do is just Crohn's colitis. So that's one way to get connected there. But the good news is that even the basic things we give somebody who says, I want to optimize my gut, even the most severe can do, because that's your bricklaying, right? Those are your basic
Sure.
foundations. And so we all understand what to eat, right? We can go through the eat the perimeter of the grocery store. If it's frozen, if it's packaged, if it's got ingredients you can't pronounce, everybody's going to talk about that. But something I think not enough people talk about is how we eat. What are we doing when we eat? So many of us do this dashboard dining. Picture, everybody knows the mom with 5 kids who's running to soccer, hits the drive-through, shoves something in her face just to fill the belly, drops the kids off. She's go, 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 constantly in fight or flight. You're not producing stomach acid properly. You're eating whatever you can find. We're not chewing just to sit and just to chew. There's actually a lot of cool things that happen. So to back it up a little bit, the process of just shoving food into your mouth, it drops the food into the gut and you get that stretch and your brain goes, okay, we have food, we're full. That's a quick satisfaction. But the process of actually handling your food, taking your meat, taking your vegetables, handling them, washing them, cutting them, cooking them, that whole process actually stimulates digestion. It stimulates digestive enzymes. It stimulates stomach acid, saliva. If we think about food, we start salivating because your body is preparing to adequately and accurately break down these foods. And so the whole process of cooking and taking your time makes a big difference. Even chewing, that chewing is a stimulation to your digestive system to say, all right, food's about to show up. So start producing some acids, start producing enzymes, get ready to break down, get ready to absorb. And so just taking our time to eat has physiological feedback mechanisms into the body saying, all right, man, we're about to eat. Let's get ready to do this properly. But that dashboard dining, run and gun, shove something in, we don't get those same feedbacks. So we're not breaking it down. We're not getting proper motility. It's likely not going to be good food for us anyway. And there's so much power in just stopping, breathing, and chewing. And I'll tell people much of the time, you are better off to not eat at all than you are to eat and run just to fill your belly. Take it as an intermittent fast, take it as a caloric deficit or whatever you want. And there are benefits to those by themselves. But oftentimes, not eating is much better than eating on the run and not eating properly. That's something we've long forgotten. And that's one of the most basic things we can do to improve our gut is focus on how we are eating.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You're right. That's not emphasized very often
Mm,
at all. You know, um, Initially you alluded to the gut brain connection
mm,
um, evolving in the last few years and really over the last few decades, the explosion of the mental health crisis around the world, not just the United States or North America. I would assume that you were really making the point that there is a direct link here as the quality of our food has decreased, the more sedentary we've become,
mhm,
the increased amount of stress that we're all experiencing is a in direct proportion causative factors to an imbalance in the gut microbiome, which is a precipitating factor to an elevation in the mental health crisis. Let me just finish at that point. Would you also agree that the simple approach that's taken by Western medicine, okay, let's put these people on, SSRIs and let's get them into therapy in of itself is, from my own personal experience, is at best somewhat effective, and at worst makes the problem, just perpetuates the problem. So the link between mental health issues, gut biome, would you agree the increase is directly proportional to the degradation of diet, nutrition, lack of movement, stress, and environmental factors that have increased over the last decades?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me try to see if I can summarize that really simply. If we look at the gut biome mental health crisis, for example, it goes beyond that. Look at I know Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was talking about this one on Joe Rogan, so it became really popular. Is atrazine? It's a pesticide in our food that is known to lower testosterone and cause issues and promote estrogens. We look now, I mean, men now in their 20s have the testosterone levels of guys in their 60s and 70s back in the 90s, right? So
Yes.
30 years later, our testosterone levels are absolutely abysmal. We look at the amount of soy and artificial consumption, all these different things. So I recently did a lecture on inflammatory bowel, and I just put it on my podcast for those who want to listen to it. And one of the things that I talk about is the use of pesticides. So from 1990 to 2020, we have 2 to 4 times the amount. We pour over 1 billion pounds of pesticides on our food every year. What are pesticides designed to do? Pesticides, rodenticides, fungicides, herbicides, they kill biological organisms that might eat the crops. If they're killing living things that eat the crops, what do you think they're doing to your gut bacteria and your biome? As resilient as it is, it's disrupting everything. We also know some of these disrupt testosterone. Look at the stress disrupts testosterone. We look at these chemicals, they promote estrogen. We have literally atrazine literally turns. There's a big joke, oh, it's turning the frogs gay. Like, we don't think we can say that, but it literally did turn male frogs to mate with male frogs. It turned them female, completely changed their sex. We've seen it in fish too. And so if we look at the mental health crisis, we look at everything going on right now. I mean, at the deepest of levels, we can see that men's testosterone levels are extraordinarily low. So men aren't masculine. Men are very feminine and frail and thin. We have a mental health crisis. Look at the gut and disruption of gut bacteria, not only the hormonal connection that's happening and the emotional swings that are happening from the hormone imbalances, but how our gut bacteria integrate with our brain and our hormones and everything else. Those are disrupted. So it's like having disruptions in our very DNA. The entire human aspect of DNA, genetics, and biomes are being completely destroyed by everything. And then the Western approach, right? This degradation of health and mental health crisis, I think it's all linked together, right? I mean, people will say, well, transgenderism, right? That's a really hot topic that can really break careers. So cut this one out if you want to cut it out. But they say the transgender crisis that's happening is more people than ever identifying. One, there's a social aspect to that. But two, I believe it's very much biological, biochemical, because our testosterone levels, men aren't masculine anymore. Right? That's happening because our hormones are plummeted. It's altering our very genetics and DNA. It's damaging how we reproduce and who we are. I think there's a lot more to it than just a social construct people say it is. I think it's very chemically based. And then the Western approach goes, well, here are some chemicals. Here are some SSRIs. Here are some TCAs TCAs is what I'm looking for, the tricyclic antidepressants. And they effectively treat the brain like a bowl of chemical soup. And we just throw chemicals in there to try to block things. SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. We are blocking the reuptake in order to keep more into the receptor sites. So we're not redrawing it in. And so instead of increasing the amount that we have available, we're trying to increase or lengthen the usage of what little we already have inside the brain. And so it's really complicated. I mean, even thyroid, the greatest amount of, I believe it's T3 receptors inside the brain, right? Thyroid is the master regulator gland. It does everything. It controls gut motility and growth and development and neurological processes. And they're all being disrupted by chronic stress, bad food, poor nutrition. We're nutrient deficient. There was a study back from 2004, University of Texas, who compared and said, well, we would have about 8 oranges today to get the nutrients that one orange would have done 50 years ago. Today, estimates are 20 oranges. So we have up to 20 times less than nutrients in our food because of agriculture, farming practices, and everything else going on. So we really are living in a backwards, poisoned world where our bodies are just failing to thrive.
Okay, so as we wrap this up, let's lead the listeners with something positive. Like let's
Yes.
empower. Let's like because like seriously, you
Yeah.
listen to I listen to you. I listen. They listen to me, and sometimes it's like I can imagine if I was done. You just raise your hands. What are you to do, right?
100%.
I don't farm my own food. Whatever, right? I can't avoid all the toxins in the environment and the heavy metals and so on and so forth. It's like it's what am I to do? So let's come from an empowering standpoint. Let's give some real actionable steps that people can take right now that in some ways can make feel they're making positive steps forward to enhance their health and well-being.
Love that question, Jay. And I'm so glad you bring it up too, because so often we can get wrapped up in this, okay, well, I can't eat or do anything anymore.
Right.
When I was being trained, I developed orthorexia where I'm like, I can't eat anything. Like I have to be very selective. And we just learn to make better choices. The reality is it's very hard to win a battle when the water has heavy metals and forever chemicals and toxins and all these things. But here's what we can do. Number one, we can get a basic water filter. You can get a shower filter for 25 bucks on Amazon, connect it. It'll take out a lot of the bulk of the stuff. It's a mineral filter. It's really quite nice. I change mine every 6 months. So that's one thing we can do. We can get, a distiller is another great way to manage some of that junk. We can supplement basics. Some people will say supplement iodine because it can bind to fluoride and other junk in your system. We have to reduce our exposure though. So, avoid the junk food. If it's packaged, just avoid it. Eat what you can. I advocate for a heavy animal-based diet. The cleaner the foods you eat, the less you have to consume. People go, well, it's so expensive. I mean, it is, but you don't have to consume as much of it because it's more nutrient dense. Your body doesn't care about calories nearly as much as it cares about nutrients. But again, we talked about our food being so depleted, right? Over the years, 20-to-1 ratio of these oranges. So grab a basic multivitamin, not like a Jameson off the shelf garbage brand, like a nice one, like a nice capsule or powder of some kind. I have free programs on my website as well. People can access as well to help with some of these basic issues. But get a basic vitamin, a basic mineral, get some magnesium. 400 to 1200 milligrams a day for most people, split into doses is great. Not citrate, you'll shit your pants. Get like a magnesium, like a bisglycinate, right? Like a 3 and 8, something easily absorbed. But that's
Sure.
it. Vitamins, minerals, some basic little bits of 12 to 20 mics of iodine a day. Get your magnesium in and just don't eat like a dick. Like it can really be that simple. It's just to eat food. If your great grandmother would recognize what the food is, you can eat it. If she wouldn't, don't. That's your candies, that's your sweets, that's your fancy drinks and whatever it is. These are highly problematic. And just by doing those things, we can fix 99% of the diseases out there. Is it going to be perfect? No. Reality is our world sucks. That's just, we have to do our best with it though. And we can do so much good by just avoiding the basics and supplementing in basic nutrients.
I've always said that you're either going to pay up front or you're going to pay backside. On the backside, you're going to pay a lot more. So what am I referring to? So when people say, well, eating whole foods or eating grass-fed eats, it's expensive. It's definitely more expensive on the front end. So first of all, you have to ask yourself the question, why is that? Right? Secondly, I would rather pay up front to eat good food and stay well,
Mhm.
pay on the backside, trying to regain my health and dealing with sickness and poor quality of life and shorten quantity of life. So guys, you're going to pay up front or pay on the backside. And we know upfront is way less costly long term than paying the backside.
Yes. And it's interesting because I know we're running short on time here, Jay, so I'll keep her short. But the argument that good food is more expensive, in a lot of cases it can be. But if you're paying for the label at the grocery store that says organic, farm raised, farm fresh, blah, 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 a lot of those labels mean nothing. All animals that we eat come from farms. It's just a romanticized word that sounds small town and cute so they can charge more money. Cage free. And like your chickens aren't raised in cages, they're raised in pens. So again, it's a word that means nothing. So I have an episode about that on my podcast. So just understanding your language. But if you're like, you know what, I don't have money to buy organic, grass-fed, natural beef. Well, here's what you can do. Even if you live in a big city like New York City, get a couple of friends on the weekend, chip in together, buy a cooler, go out to some local farms, make a couple of calls, see who's around, go and buy a half of a cow, right? Bring that home, stick it in your freezer. You can go and check for yourself. Is the animal quality? Ask the farmers, are they fed? Are they grass fed and grass finished? Most are fed grains at the end, but it's better than only a grain, soy, barley life. But you can check these things like, okay, is this good enough? Because if you buy in bulk like that and you go with a bunch of friends, it's still cheaper than going to the grocery store and buying the meat there. I buy grass fed, grass finished, organic, pesticide free, range free, everything. No hormones, no antibiotics. And it is equal to me going to the grocery store because I go directly to the farmer. They have their own butcher, their own shop there at the ranch. I drive right out and I pick it up and bring it home. And it costs me no more than going to the grocery store.
Yeah, it's so true. We've been doing that for years and it's made a world difference. And the final note I'll make is, we talk about the importance of nutrition supplementation. You just can't, guys, in a traditional Western diet, get what you need, the proper nutrients to stay healthy and sufficient. It's just impossible. So also I like, when I do my blood work is to find out, okay, what are my levels, but what do I need to be optimal at optimal level? Sufficient level, but optimal level, so my body can perform at its highest level. So, Josh, this has been a lot of fun, incredible information. I know you got a lot of people thinking very differently than they did just an hour ago. How can people reach out to you and learn more about what you do?
Yeah, easiest way to get a hold of me is through the website. That's reversiblepod.com. That's reverseable, A-B-L-E, pod.com. If you're looking for help with Crohn's colitis, you can always reach me there. If you're looking for help with just information, you want to learn more about the gut, there's information about the podcast there. We meet with all kinds of world-renowned professionals. I mean, some of the best of the best. We've had Stephen Gundry, William Lee. We're having Mindy Pelz on. Just some of the best, most renowned doctors out there talking about the connections. One, how our gut connects to our world, but how our world connects to our gut. So we do that every week. There's an interview, and every week you can go to the quick tips or contact page on the website. We release a quick 10-15 minute episode on basic things that our users, our listeners submit questions, and you can ask us a question. We'll make an episode just for you. And lastly, on that website as well, there are free programs that I've made. I realize a lot of people who are in really basic situations, acid reflux, irritable bowel, that can be very easily fixed a lot of the time, aren't in a position or ready to work with a coach one-on-one. And so click the free stuff tab on our website and you can get some free programs full up. They're linked to podcast episodes to help you get more information. There's supplements, recommendations, there's meal plans, the works, all for free. And of course, on reversiblepod.com, you can contact me if you have any specific questions or have inflammatory bowel disease you need help with.
It's awesome. Josh Dech, reversiblepod.com. Check out his website, check out his podcast, a wealth of knowledge and information. This has been a great way to kick off the year, my friend. I really appreciate your time and your knowledge and your wisdom and your passion.
It's been a pleasure, Jay. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah. So Triple P Life, if you guys are really serious this year about up-leveling your health, check this website out, check Josh's podcast out. With some simple changes, you can really improve how you feel, how your body reacts, how your body works, and live your best life, which of course is your Triple P life. So, guys, as I always say, be you, and you will always empower your dreams, ignite your passion, and accelerate your prosperity. Until next time, be well.